Welcome to Falling for Hamlet. It was a good book.
My soul is dead.
Ray takes Shakespeare's Hamlet and modernizes it, changing it to Ophelia's perspective.
Hamlet is the story of a prince whose father is murdered, and Hamlet suspects it's his uncle because his uncle has, taken the throne and married his mother, which is a big disgrace because, his father has only been dead for so long, and by taking the throne, Claudius is screwing Hamlet over because the throne should be going to Hamlet, but Hamlet's too young or something, so that stops that. And so then Hamlet's father's ghost shows up and tells Hamlet that it was his uncle who killed him. So Hamlet's like, okay, I have to get revenge, and I have to kill my uncle, but I don't know how I'm going to kill my uncle. And so he starts acting like a crazy person because that way he can, get around the castle and people can tell him stuff. But you start to wonder if Hamlet's actually crazy or if he's acting crazy.
Point.
Hamlet is complicated, but it's really good.
I didn't like Hamlet. But at least I respect its complexity and, I respect it, at least. Moving on. Ray's goal was to try and figure out why a teenage girl would go so crazy over a boy.
It's Twilight Syndrome. You take a character, give them enough characteristics so that they can vaguely function in society, then you dangle a hot piece of meat in front of them and watch them drop their lives as fast as you can say, personalities were so yesterday.
Ray's Ophelia is defined by her love for Hamlet. To make it better, she is fully aware that she is that girl.
Why, hello there, Red. What are you doing there? You look rather ravishing this evening. What are you doing tonight? Going out for dinner? Going to the movies? Hanging out with friends? Oh, are you off to see that new boyfriend of yours? But I have a question for you, Red. Do you have any friends? No? Did you used to have friends? Do you think you still do? Are you sure? So, I think there's some questions we should be asking you, dear. Do you love your boyfriend? Do your parents like this strapping young lad? You don't think so? Do you care? Let me guess, when your family started complaining, you stopped interacting with them. Ah, I see. Does your young man always need you? Even when he's asleep? Even when he doesn't know you're there and he's asleep in his bed and you're standing in the corner breathing heavily watching him? Did you break their alarm system again, my dear? Oh dear, oh dear. I have one more question for you, Red. Would you do anything he asked you to? You would? So, if he asked you to violently murder someone, you would do it without batting an eye? What a devoted young lady you are. Red, I hate to tell you this, but you've become that girl. Oh, please don't cry, it's okay. Being that girl is sadly a common occurrence with young girls, and always has been. Oh, would you like to change? Wonderful, let's get down to it. Get a cat, they're wonderful at being horrible creatures and mean to you. You'll show them love and they'll hate you so much. And find religion. Become a nun. Or maybe a hermit. I recommend the hermit. Seriously, I do. Tell good old Pa to get the shotgun. You're going hunting. No, not like that. It's time for some father-daughter bonding time. You clearly have some daddy issues you need to take care of. It's time to take down that old cougar together and just might solve all of your problems. So Red, your other options. Number 5, run. Run as far and as fast as possible. Don't look back, ever. It's not like you ever had any friends anyways. So how you feeling, Red? You sure? So you're feeling a little better? glad to hear that. Now that you've conquered your boy problems in your life, what are you going to do? You're going to college? That's wonderful. You'll have an awesome time. But remember, you don't need him to be you. Wink at the camera. Falling for Hamlet sets up its plot in modern-day Denmark. Ophelia lives in the castle and has been friends with Hamlet and Horatio since childhood.
That is until Ophelia realizes that she and Hamlet are hot, and they can be hot together, like in a relationship, like some of the time, because they're on again, off again, I guess. Their relationship was largely affected by the media, which Ophelia hates, but she puts up with it anyways, because it's for Hamlet. Yeah. And after the king's murder and his mother's subsequent marriage to Claudius, Ophelia watches as Hamlet slowly descends into insanity.
Insanity? It's like a switch flips.
I'm so changeable.
So, throughout the rest of their relationship, Hamlet manages to kill her father, say mean, horrible, nasty things to her, put on a play. All those actors get incarcerated, and we never hear from them again. Shank her brother, and you know what? By the end of the day, Ophelia still kind of loves him.
Basically take all the plot points of Hamlet and turn them into a modern-day reenactment, except for the part, of course, where Ophelia dies. Because Ophelia doesn't die. She lives.
Ray even takes the monologues and tries to put them in modern English. And I don't know how to describe them. I mean, what's the word I'm looking for? There's horrible, painful, disgusting, horrific, terrible, vomit-inducing. It's just bad!
After I finished analyzing a poem, I tossed the textbook aside and slid onto the floor next to him. He was scrawling, "To be and not to be," over and over again.
To be or not to be? That is the question.
"What's that?" I asked. "That is the question." I studied the scribbled page and tried to figure out what he meant. He leaned his head back and closed his eyes, his voice distant. "Is it better to suffer through life, to deal with all the crap that's thrown at you, or to fight against your problems by ending your life? To die is to sleep, that's all, and by sleeping we escape everything that tortures us. That's the dream then, isn't it? The perfection of nothingness."
Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing end them, to die, to sleep, no more, and by a sleep to say we end the heartache and the 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished.
A chill ran through me. It sounded like he was talking about suicide. Was he just thinking aloud, or was he formulating a plan? If I came at it headlong, I thought he might freeze up, so I tried to follow his logic and keep him talking. I suggested, "When you sleep, it's not nothingness. You dream."
To die, to sleep, to sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub.
He opened his eyes and looked at me. "There's the catch, huh? When you die, who knows what dreams might come? What's in the afterlife, if there is one? That's the scary part. That's what keeps us living out our long and painful lives. Who would put up with heartache and the injustice of life when one could just get a knife and end it, except for the fear of what comes next?"
For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come, when we have shuffled off this mortal coil, must give us pause. There's the respect that makes calamity of so long life. For who would bear the whips and scorns of time, the oppressor's wrong, the proud man's contumely, the pangs of despised love, the law's delay, the insolence of office, and the spurns that patient merit of the unworthy takes, when he himself might his quietus make with a bare bodkin, Who would fardels bear to grunt and sweat under a weary life? But that the dread of something after death.
Fear of something worse makes us too scared to do anything. My own fear bubbled over. To do what, Hamlet? What are you thinking of doing? Nothing.
The undiscovered country, from whose bourne no traveller returns, puzzles the will and makes us rather bear those ills we have than fly to others that we know not of. Thus, conscience doth make cowards of us all, and thus the native hue of resolution is sicklied o'er with the pale cast of thought, and enterprises of great pith and moment with this regard their currents turn awry and lose the name of action.
In the actual Shakespearean English, it's poetic as well as ambiguous, and that's what makes it clever. Yet when it's translated to modern-day English, all it really does is sound stupid and falls flatter on its face than Battlefield Earth did at the box office.
Not only that, it seems unnatural and out of place compared to the other dialogue. But of course, all the monologues come from Hamlet. So, how does he do as a character in this book?
Well, he's hot.
And?
He's hot. He wears the same sweater throughout most of the play. It's a black hoodie. He's blonde. I'm really drawing a blank here other than he's hot. In the original play, Hamlet can only be described as ambiguous. Our first look at him is after his mother's wedding to Claudius, and he is seen as an outsider, the only one who can't seem to get over his father's death, the only one who suspects foul play, but doesn't have the means to do anything to fix it. When Hamlet sees the ghost, the storyline of the play splits into two different readings. That Hamlet actually saw the ghost and his father was murdered by Claudius, or that Hamlet hallucinated the ghost, who told him what he wanted to hear. The play can then be read in multiple ways, that Hamlet is actually crazy, or that he is faking it to move around the castle and get the information that he needs to gain revenge on his uncle. In this case, Hamlet comes to embody the classic tragic revenge hero. He needs his madness, real or fake, to be able to reach his end goal, and that's what makes him so interesting. You can never truly know when his madness stops being an act and when it enters into being the true thing. In Falling for Hamlet, Hamlet's character is boiled down into being a hot teenage prince who suffers from serious mother issues. I don't know if Ray did this on purpose. Maybe she thought that this was the only way that a teenager could understand and relate to Hamlet. But in this translation, something extremely crucial is lost and the story suffers for it.
In this novel, it's not Hamlet who has the most trouble making decisions, it's Ophelia. What really bugged me about the original play was how much trouble Hamlet had making decisions and sticking to it. Ophelia really captures that. I like him. No, I don't. I like him. No, I don't. I want to be with him. No, I don't. I want to be with him. I hate him. He lied. I like him. I hate him. I like him. I want him to die. Just make up your mind. I don't know where that came from.
I'm so changeable.
Claudius also gets a bad makeover in this novel. The original character of Claudius was portrayed as a good king. He was slimy and he got the throne in a horrible way, but when it came down to it, he always got the job done. In the case of Falling for Hamlet, Claudius becomes this slimy guy who's obsessive over people figuring out that he killed his brother to get the throne.
Hamlet's mother Gertrude is still ineffectual and stupid, but all that ambiguous mother-son sexual tension is not so subtly taken out, along with the ambiguity of whether or not she was involved in the murder plot. In Falling for Hamlet, she's clingy and smothering, but she's also ready to change husbands the second she breaks in the old model.
Not only does Ray butcher the ambiguity of the old characters, she feels the need to add in her own band of ragtag, space-wasting characters just to make things more interesting.
Hey, Jar Jar, keep away from those energy binders. If your hand gets caught in the beam, it's gonna go numb for hours.
Like Sebastian.
Oh, Sebastian, there always has to be one.
Jacob Black syndrome is a horrible disease that's affecting more and more fictional characters as of late. The symptoms are very simple. Take a hot guy. He's nice. Have him sit around and wait for the girl of his dreams, who's this hot, bland girl who's currently dating the hot jerk. She'll eventually run off and leave the hot jerk behind and run into the arms of your hot, nice guy, and the two of them will gallivant off into the sunset together and live happily ever after for the rest of their lives. The end.
Sebastian is only there to reconfirm how crazy Ophelia is to be dating Hamlet. Like we couldn't figure that out for ourselves. Ophelia spends the whole book debating about her relationship with Hamlet, mostly wavering between she loves him and she's not sure how crazy he actually is.
Even though they have some good times after Hamlet tells her that she's a two-faced bitch and that he's never actually loved her, then embarrasses her in public until she wavers between loving him and not, and then he stabs her father, she starts to hate him, but she never actually gets to real hate.
I blame the hot crazy scale.
Let me illustrate. A girl is allowed to be crazy, as long as she is equally hot. Thus, if she's this crazy, she has to be this hot. If she's this crazy, she has to be this hot. You want a girl to be above this line.
Falling for Hamlet ends just like Hamlet's epic sword fight. Only it's at a lacrosse game. With blades in the sticks. Wait, isn't fencing... Isn't it a legitimate university sport?
Well, Sebastian had to be able to join into the beating of Hamlet somehow.
But...
What Loki is trying to say is, the end sucks. I can see the headlines now. Monarchy wiped out by lacrosse game. Lacrosse game drives monarchy nuts.
It's ridiculous. It's forced. It's an insult on your intelligence. And where do you get a lacrosse stick with a blade in it?
Shanks or us.
Of course, like the Hamlet play, the body count hits the roof, killing Hamlet, Claudius, Gertrude, and Ophelia's brother Laertes. And Ophelia is left alone in the world.
Well, she has Horatio. And Sebastian.
Oh, Sebastian.
But, of course, what's a teen novel without a moral?
Ophelia even explicitly tells us the morals, so we don't need to break our brains over them.
The basic moral is don't lose yourself over a guy, and that's not a bad moral.
But like the rest of the story, though, that's oversimplifying it. A better moral might be you shouldn't try to devote your life to fixing someone. Falling for Hamlet tries to turn a side character into a main character without fleshing them out.
There are a few places where it does do the occasional scene really well, like Ophelia's incarcerations at the hand of the conniving Gertrude. But mostly it oversimplifies Hamlet.
Maybe it would have been better if it wasn't a direct adaptation, but took a few of the plot points and loosely created another story out of them. But it didn't.
Well, to conclude,
I hated every single minute of it.
it wasn't the worst thing I've ever read, but it's certainly not winning any awards.
You're dead to me.
Falling for Hamlet.
Alas, poor Yorick. I knew him well.